This is the Breakfast Leadership Podcast. Boundaries or burnout, you make the choice. Here's your host, Michael Levitt. Welcome to the Breakfast Leadership Show. It's Michael here, and today I've got Jennifer Luzzatto on the line. Hey, Jennifer, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I am awesome. Great to connect with you again. You are the president of Summit Financial Partners, and you also wrote a book called Inheriting Chaos with Compassion. And just as a backstory for the audience, this book addresses, situations when you inherit, which is probably not the best word, but it's the truth, a financial challenge with, the passing of loved ones. So tell us a little bit about you and why you wrote the book and some of the things that you've learned since publishing the book.
Yes. The book was inspired by the fact that I lost my husband to leukemia about 4 years ago. And then, and subsequently about a year and a half ago, my sister died unexpectedly. Both of them were unexpected deaths. And when my sister died, we found out her husband had much more challenging memory issues than we realized. So suddenly I became his power of attorney and her executor all at once. And both of those events were challenging in slightly different ways. My husband, of course, I had much better grip on what our financial situation was, being the financial person in the relationship. That was more of an emotional struggle, and there was some financial issues as far as figuring out how to settle some things, but not too bad. But when my sister died, I didn't know anything about their financial lives at all. And I suddenly was like thrown in the middle of figuring it all out. And as I was working through all of that, and there's still things going on, I'm still my brother-in-law's power of attorney, I realized if someone like me who has a lot of experience with forms and phone calls to institutions and knowing the lingo associated with it all was really getting frustrated and struggling with not feeling overwhelmed by it all, that how much more so those that don't live in this financial world all the time must really feel overwhelmed. So I'm hoping that it helps people kind of take a step back and reach those tasks that they need to do, but just, don't feel like doing. They're grieving or they're struggling for other reasons and still have to deal with all of that. And I've really learned since I wrote the book that people are pretty thirsty for that information. I was a little surprised by that. So it's been really a cool experience talking to people and getting their feedback. And your friends always tell you it's a good book because they're your friends. But I think that some people that I didn't already know have received some value. So it's been pretty gratifying.
Well, it's a really important book. And for many of us, when we think about, losing a loved ones, the primary thought that comes to mind are our parents, and not a spouse or sibling or a child. And in, the fact that you do have a strong financial background, helped, but, I'm sure, you leaned on that, but even going through an emotional trauma, such as, the loss of loved ones, sometimes the brain forgets what it knows. And I'm sure that's, you go, okay, what do I need to do today? And it sounds like that you had that, that experience quite a bit of, it's like, okay, what do I need to do? With your spouse, like you said, you kind of knew the financial situation, but, taking care of, the sister and then, her husband and all the dynamics of that going into it, knowing them, but not knowing, that aspect of their life had to have been, just really taxing not to use another financial term, but it definitely, thinking about that, it had to have been, real challenging on top of, mourning the loss and everything else that took place.
It was, and you feel it's weird dynamic to at first because you're really suddenly deep in someone's life in a way you weren't before, and so it feels a little weird to do that, and on top of the emotional issues, it takes a lot of time to deal with all this, and it doesn't even have to be a death. It could be a disability. It could be just someone needs help temporarily for whatever reason, and it's you've suddenly gotten an extra part-time job on top of your normal life, and it makes it even more overwhelming, right? Because most of us are already working full-time. We have families we're taking care of, and then bam, you get hit with all this extra work to do, and you want to do it because you love your people and you want to make sure their wishes or they're taken care of, in the case of my brother-in-law, and so, but it still can be just exhausting.
Oh, absolutely. And going back to the book, one of the key things that I see why this book is definitely timely. Of course, everyone's always had these types of challenges, but it's really timely because our population is aging and getting a lot older, and a lot of our parents are definitely in retirement age and approaching
Right.
those end of life things. Even in the area that I live in Toronto, in 16 years the population over age 65 is going to double, and then
Wow.
over 90 will triple. So you have a lot of people that are in that age group, and people my age, and the children and family of those individuals
Mm-hmm.
really should plan ahead. As a financial partner and planner, that's the one thing that you probably get tired of saying it, but you have to say it every day. It's like you need to come up with a financial plan on how you're going to address these things. And even having a conversation with my parents that are in their mid 70s now, they had a health scare a couple of years ago, actually both of them separately,
Wow.
and it was an awakening for my brother and I, and we both said, okay, we need to have this conversation, and let's make sure that all the financial matters are documented. Give us just list in a place and keep it and let us know where it's at, so we know where to contact all of your your financial accounts and all of that kind of good stuff, and make sure that the will is updated and all of that stuff. Because for the longest time, funny personal story, my parents' will indicated that if they both were to pass, that my brother and I would have to go live with our Uncle Joe. Now my Uncle Joe passed away in 2002, and there's debate as to where he ended up. So both, and I say that tongue in cheek, we both love and miss him, but there's questions, and so both my brother and I are going, wait a minute, that's kind of a scary thought, because he's been gone a long time. It's like, we have to go live with him, or well, where is he? So
is it a place you want to go or not?
yeah, exactly. So is he in purgatory, or at least, or who knows? But at the end of the day, no, they updated it, so we know there's no longer that clause in there.
I'm glad for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because that would have been an interesting adventure. Yeah, for sure.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, you highlight something so important there. I mean, I'm not an estate planning attorney, but really the first thing people need to take care of is getting those legal documents done, because that sets the platform for everything else that happens after that. And I see it in my own, I have with my clients and people, they're usually pretty good. Usually if they have an advisor, they've gotten, they've tried to get all their ducks in a row, but it's a struggle because people don't want to talk about death or who's going to take care of their kids, or or they can't agree who they want to take care of their kids if something were to happen to them for legitimate reasons. But that is like the utmost importance, is to get those documents done and have them somewhere that someone can find them. And so it's it really, really important. I'm glad your parents took care of that, and very wise.
Yeah, and I have a copy of, of their will, in Toronto. They live in Florida, but, I have a copy of it. So at least that way, if something drastic happens, I'd have, mechanisms to be able to at least start getting things moving along. But yeah, it's one of those things. Yeah, and I agree with you. It's a difficult conversation to have with loved ones, because for many people, it's a subject that they're just simply not comfortable talking about. But
Mm-hmm.
it is reality. As I tell people, we all come with an expiry date. We don't know what that date is, and I don't want to. But we know that it's going to hit at some point, and the more proactive that we are in planning things and getting it done and over with, it just makes it easier for those that have to deal with your matters after you've passed, because from that point, everything is hopefully tied up and can flow normally, and the family members can spend more time grieving, mourning, and celebrating your life, instead of trying to figure out, okay, where's this, where's that, and you have to basically go CSI into your parents'
Yeah.
house to figure out where the heck is anything, and
Yes.
you may not know, and
Yes.
you almost have to wait until the bills start coming in the mail. Which, even then, think about this, and this is something, yeah, that I think a lot of people, as technology has advanced, is many of us have gone to electronic billing, so we don't get an invoice in the mail anymore.
Right. Yeah.
So we're waiting for a bill to come in the mail that won't come in the mail because it's electronically invoiced. And if we
Mm-hmm.
don't have access to our loved ones' email accounts,
Mm-hmm.
there's all of these little nuances that really, really create some interesting dynamics that we, quite frankly, didn't really have to deal with a couple decades ago, and
Right.
now we do. So, and what's funny is technology really hasn't caught up with that, saying, okay, in the event of my untimely passing,
Mm-hmm.
grant access to this, but there isn't a mechanism anywhere that I've seen
Right.
to make that happen. So
Yeah.
you have to go old school and basically just have a sheet of paper with all of your account information locked in a physical cabinet or something that you could go to and figure out what's what.
Yeah, that's a total gift to someone for you to do. And that actually was a wake me up in the middle of the night moment with my sister. I was like, what if she's getting a lot of bills electronically? And thankfully she wasn't, but I really did have to dig through the mail and wait for things to show up. And so really it's a really big gift if you can at least be mostly organized around all that and have a notebook or if you don't like organization to that degree, at least throw recent statements in a box. So some sort of central location makes it so much easier, I think, for whoever is going to help you or settle your estate. It just cuts down on the stress in an already very stressful situation. So, and actually, you talk about your parents. Mine are in their early 80s, and after all this happened, we went and had me become an active power attorney on their accounts. So that, given their age, and they're both pretty good health at the moment, thank goodness, but I have the ability to step in at any moment. There is a problem though, and a lot of people don't want their children to know their financial situation, so that could be tough. But there's just one trusted person that they will allow to have access to information. It can make a huge difference in the future.
Yeah, it's so helpful, and it's a reminder even to me. I don't think my expiry date's anytime soon, but just having a disaster recovery kind of thing too,
Mm-hmm.
even personally, for a situation where your computer dies, or you lose
Mm-hmm.
it, or something tragically happens to your home and you need to access your accounts, and you don't necessarily remember all of your passwords. At least having something somewhere where you can access it in an emergency, to be able to access all those things, I think is just good practice,
Mm-hmm.
and quite frankly, almost like a self-insurance policy in a way, just
Yeah.
having everything there. And again, that's information that, again, yeah, it's helpful to pass along. And then also too, it's one of those things, once you have to document all of your user accounts and passwords, you realize, wow, I've got a lot of accounts, or I've got a lot of things
Yeah.
going on. Maybe I need to scale some of these back. And again, that's just an exercise of being more efficient with what you do, and the things you're doing.
Yeah.
So when you're working with people, and they are in this situation, or they're trying to prepare for the situation,
Mm-hmm.
what are some common tips that you share with them that can help them move things along, so their financial picture is a little bit cleaner, has more clarity than them just going through things aimlessly?
Yeah. So a couple things. If we're working with someone before, for example, I have a client we knew her husband was ill. We thought he had a longer time period than he actually ended up having, but we consolidated accounts. We pulled everything together so that it was all of her investments, not her banking accounts, but she had, one banking relationship, and then all of her investment assets were on one custodial platform. And so, and it had gone from like 8 different places to 2. And that makes life simpler and cleaner, and you have less paperwork in the end when you're settling someone's estate, because it's all in one place, and you have this one process that you do with the custodian. If it's after the fact, it's really helpful, I think, to gather as much information as you can and try to figure out how many. So, for example, my sister had a checking account at one bank. She actually had 3 different bank relationships, which was crazy. But um, so she had one, and so I kind of waited a little bit to see what else might show up in the mail, and then I found out there was like an inherited IRA there. And then so once I started getting various pieces, I could make one trip to the bank, that one place, and have a much more efficient use of my time as far as getting it figured out. And then when you get there, you're like, here's the social security number. Are there any other accounts here I don't know about? And so I think if you can step back a little bit and get organized and consolidate by institution, or even type of account, then it's easier to consolidate and clean up. So that was pretty helpful with her stuff. And I was able to eventually get everything down for my sister, now her husband, who is her sole beneficiary, into one banking relationship and one custodian for his investment assets. So it makes it easier to take care of his financial life, because his health life is getting much more complicated. So it does help a lot to have it simplified.
Well, that makes a big difference. And your situation um, is definitely unique in a way, although it's not like it's not happened before, where if you lose a loved one, and if you have a special needs child, so
Mm-hmm.
your niece or nephew, and now you're the designated guardian for this individual, coordinating all of that, especially if there's external supports that come in from different agencies, or governmental bodies or whatnot, making sure that those assistants come through, and all of those things. And I think, again, a lot of people go through life, say, well, I'm going to set up this account and everything's good, and okay, I know where everything is, that's great. Well, you may not be here tomorrow, and if you want continuation of things for your loved ones and for people to be able to take care of your loved ones, then yeah, this is definitely a big exercise to undertake. And yes, it takes some time, but
Mm-hmm.
you do it once, you do it right, and then you just update it as things need to be
Mm-hmm.
updated,
Mm-hmm.
and it's one of those things where, I'm sure in the book you comment about, how frequently you should do it. But I would think just for myself, very similar to, the smoke detectors. It's like when daylight savings time changes, okay, swap the batteries out and do all that kind of stuff. Although in my building they're hardwired, but I still do the test. And of course they do the test too, but I do it as well, just in case there's something out of the ordinary. But that's again one of
Right.
those things where you think about it, it's like, okay, there's just certain, that way you schedule it and you're going to do it, and you say, okay, has there been any changes in my financial picture with accounts or retirement accounts or anything that I
Mm-hmm.
open, just again to have that disaster recovery thing. And something I did several years ago is I bought um, a red folder, and basically I have that in a secure space where if I need to grab that immediately, I know to grab it. If some people may want a pink one or a purple one or a blue one, doesn't matter what color it is,
Right.
just so it's different than other things that you do. And unless you have OCD, that it might really bug you to have a different color. But again, think of it in a way that it's just a little bit different, so you remember to grab it, because last thing you want to do is grab the wrong folder when you need something in an emergency.
Right. Wow. I'm impressed. That's unusual organization. That's great.
Well, there's a poster that I have. It says I have CDO, which is OCD, but the letters are in alphabetical order. And
Love
yeah. And anybody that knows me well, completely relates to that. And they say, yeah, that's completely you. Um,
it.
I, I've eased up over the years, but still, there's certain things that I'm a little what's the phrase, anal about, I think is what people tell me. So I'm trying to ease up as I get older, but no promises.
Well, you can see there's fruit from that trait, right, of being hyper organized, and so I think that's great taking care of that. I'm a pretty organized person, but I struggle a little bit with that notebook thing, because the thing I haven't done, which is ridiculous, is go get copies of all my keys and put them in the notebook. And it's because I don't want to go to the hardware store. I don't like to shop. So I'm like, oh, I don't want to run another errand. But that was a huge thing I ran into with my sister. We found probably 50 keys, and we couldn't find the ones we needed. We'd be trying locks with, dozens of keys at a time. And, it's just these things you don't think about. But so anyway, yeah, that's my confession of my struggle with that one.
Oh, we definitely all have those little things that we struggle with. And even I see it a lot of times too with people in various professions where they're really good at their profession, but if they have to apply the lessons that they teach people about for
Yeah.
themselves, sometimes it's problematic, because it's like, oh, it just feels like work. And it's like, yeah, but you're helping your best client, which is yourself, so you should definitely
Mm-hmm.
focus on that. So
Great perspective. Yeah.
yep. I've loved our conversation today, Jennifer, and always have fun chatting with you. Where can people find out more about you and the awesome work you're doing?
Oh, thanks. I've enjoyed it too. It's been really fun. My website to my firm is Summit Financial Partners RVA.com. And my email and my phone number and everything are on there. RVA is for Richmond, Virginia, which is where I'm located. Yeah, I think that really explains my background and contact information. And but this has been really fun. I think you've got a lot of great perspective on all this, and I actually learned some stuff from you too. So it's been great.
That's awesome. And audience, I'll have that information and the link to the book as well in the show notes. So Jennifer, appreciate you and all the great things you're doing. We'll definitely keep in touch. And thanks again for
Great.
being on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And until next time, everybody, be well.
Hey, it's Michael again. Thank you for listening to the podcast. I really appreciate it. If you're like many people, you're dealing with some significant stress and possibly approaching burnout. I know how you feel. In 2009, my burnout led to a year of worst-case scenarios. I do not want that to happen to you. If you go to breakfastleadership.com, you can register for a free webinar on burnout prevention, as well as get a free checklist to have successful mornings. Start off each day the right way. Again, that's at breakfastleadership.com. Also, since you are a loyal podcast listener, I'm asking you to like, rate, and review my podcast on iTunes. I look at all the reviews and appreciate your comments, and it helps other potential listeners discover the content I have on the show. I appreciate you, and thanks again for listening.